Welcome back to DAGryffyn Hobby. My name's Dave. In this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at my 671 turbine. I don't remember exactly where I left off last time, but I might as well just get right back into it. After taking the engine almost completely apart, there was only one piece that broke. That's this little lever of sorts that is part of the smoke unit assembly. It's just like, I don't know if it's Bakelite or fiberboard or what it is, but it was fragile and the end snapped off. But I cleaned up the base or frame or body, whatever you want to call it. It was very dirty, so of course there's always a number of ways you can do things. I just washed this with some diluted dish soap, rinsed it off, scrubbed it with a toothbrush, soaped it, rinsed it. Then I sprayed like WD-40 on the wheels, scrubbed them with the toothbrush and washed it off again. Then I blew out any remaining moisture with a little bit of air pressure from the compressor. Oiled all the axle ends by the wheels and also the inside by the gears. The wheels really spin nicely and quietly. Everything's been cleaned up enough. Now there's always more you can do. I could press the wheels off and replace bushings and all that, but that's beyond the scope of what I consider to be a cleaning that anybody could do. And that's where I like to keep my videos. What can the average person do with basic tools? As far as I'm concerned, for my enjoyment of this engine, I don't need to pop the wheels off and replace the bushings, whatnot. I think it's clean enough. So this is the next part to go in. It's the shaft with the gears and these two bushings or bearings. They have little ball bearings in the ends. I'm just going to put a little bit of Labelle in each one and then put it back in place. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to put that down for just a second and try to find my grease, which I know is here somewhere. I don't know where it is. Luckily, I have another pack of the Labelle oils that I had ordered quite a long time ago. It comes with the 102, 107, and the 106. And they sell this as a kit for model railroads for HO, O, S, and LGB. So I've been very happy with this stuff. It's super slick, and I feel like it does a fantastic job. I'm just going to put some grease on the gear on each end. Then I'll put the shaft back in, keeping in mind that the tall end of this bushing goes up. Then since the shaft is in place, I will put this plate back in. And I'll put the insulator and the contact in for the center rail pickup. And I cleaned this up as much as I could. It's not in great shape, but unless it starts sparking, I'm not going to worry about it. Now, I had taken these apart because the wheels were just that dirty. Not just the surface, but in here and around the axle, it was just caked and wrapped with who knows what. So I needed to take them apart to really get them cleaned. The only thing then that I'm left with is, can I get it back together without breaking another piece? There seems to be contact between the flange and the flangeless wheel. I don't know if that has to do with, which pieces came off of which truck, but unfortunately I didn't keep track of that. I guess it would be trial and error, or just put it together and hope everything's all right. So these are the pieces that go and clip into the truck and then keep the axles in. Now, it's not a clip as much as it is just a metal piece, and in order to get it out, I had to bend it. And I've not done that before, so I'm just kind of hoping I can get it back together. As you can see, taking it out causes this bend. I had straightened this one out, and then bent those ends a little bit out. So I don't know if it makes more sense to straighten it and bend those or leave it like this and put it back together. So it looks like I'll be trying both ways and we'll see what works. Okay, you can see the tabs right here. Those are what they should look like. So with the one that's still bent, my question then is, how do I straighten that out now that it's in there? I'm starting to regret taking it apart. But that happens. I got the rear truck back together, and you might be able to see I marked it up a bit doing it. Now, it's not perfect, but it's as good as it's going to get because I really don't feel like breaking anything else. For future reference, don't take these trucks apart unless you absolutely have to. I'm sure there are proper tools and proper methods to do this, but for the basic home repair, just leave it together and soak it in something, mineral spirits, oil, whatever you feel like soaking it in to get all the gunk off, and then just clean it and oil it. So learn from my mistakes. Don't take these trucks apart. Now I still have to get the front truck together, so I'll try to show you what I did. But first, you might, if you saw the previous video, you may remember I said that this piece was bent out and sticking, and I was like, I don't know why that's like that, but apparently it's rubbing on the frame. It turns and then scrapes, so I don't know what that's about. So I'm going to try to bend it down. If the piece snaps off like it just did, I'm okay with that. At least that's better than it was. So what did I do? Well, I did like 12 things, waiting for something to work. Just squeeze this side, take another pair of pliers, try to bend that up. And it does part of the job. And it might even be good enough. But I'm going to fiddle with it a little bit anyway. One of the things I did was take a pair of snap ring pliers, which the average hobbyist might not have these, but it's a good tool to have both for the intended purpose and for unintended purposes. I've used these a lot, probably more often for things that aren't snap ring pliers. So they come in all sorts of different sizes. If you take this nut out, you switch the arms around, put it back in, and then when you squeeze it, it pushes out. So that's why I use these all the time, because depending on how you set it up, you can squeeze and it pushes out, or you can squeeze and it pushes together. So I just find them really useful. Squeeze the tabs together up top, and really it's just not straight enough to work. So I'm going to try to squeeze it again. I found these somewhere, and they come in really handy too. Sometimes it's just great having a bunch of different types of pliers around. So yeah, if you don't have to, don't take these trucks apart. Unless you know what you're doing. And I clearly do not. I think they're good enough. They're not coming apart. I'm going to call that done for now. One other problem is this front pin here. Screw sits here, and then this is supposed to keep the truck in place. Now it will sort of do that, but you might see it's going the wrong direction. It should be front back, like that. Unfortunately, this one's a little damaged. And that might be why I have this damaged the inside of the wheel, possibly from arcing, from bouncing or hitting spots it's not supposed to, maybe in switches or something. But again, this is not a showpiece. I'm not selling this. This is for my use. So I'm just going to stay the course, and if I end up having issues, I'll take it apart again. Alright, I took the 2 screws out of the brush plate. Pull that plug out for the E-unit. See if I can naggle this off. Nope. I don't think I can. Looks like the wire from the coil does not have enough play in it for me to take the brush plate off without desoldering it. Okay, well that popped off, so that's good. If it goes back together, that'll be even better. Some very dirty brushes, but not overly worn. And that's a little gumpy. There's screws on this side too. This might be another regret it moment, who knows? Just applying very light pressure. Certainly don't want to do any damage. I'm assuming to get the whole armature out, you'd have to press this gear off, and that's just not something I'm going to do. This might be one of the dirtiest brush plates I've seen. I really can't believe this thing was running as nice as it was, based on all the dried lubricant and carbon buildup and everything else. I mean, that's crazy. I'm gonna do this without burning my finger. So then I just need to clean up the E-unit a little bit. I'm happy with that. The motor's cleaned up. The unit's marginally cleaned up. I am not putting this part of the smoke unit back in. I will keep the parts in case I want to later, but for the time being, as I may have said earlier, I don't plan on using the smoke unit in this. This piece doesn't look original anyway. I mean, it's got a number 7, NO7. I'm going to save these pieces and put them aside for a time where if I decide I want to put them back in, then I can do it then. Before I put the motor back in, I'm just going to look at these spots that look like there's contact and put a little oil on them. The motor was cleaned. The E-unit was a little bit cleaned. I'm going to put those back in. Make sure the gear mates up. Now the shaft moves forward and back a little bit, but the gear on the shaft is about half the width of this gear. And when it moves forward and then back, it doesn't go any further than the edges. It's actually a little bit less. So I'm gonna say that that is good. And before tightening the screws, you definitely want to make sure that the motor is sitting flat and that the gears are meshed. And then I'd run the screws down most of the way on each side before tightening them, just so that there's equal pressure. I have to solder these wires back, but I also have to do the light. I used a lighter to give that a quick shrink, not too tight, just enough to keep it in place. And then this sits over this nub, and then the screw on the front of it goes in there. When I initially ran this engine, I did notice that the light was flickering, so I cleaned up the inside and the receptacle. You can see that this has been eaten away by I'm assuming the smoke pellets, and if I bend it too much, I'm pretty sure it would snap. So I'm not going to bend it too much. The bulb back in. That seems pretty tight, so hopefully that's good enough. I stuck a piece of electrical tape on the side of the E-unit, slide that shrink tube down on top of it, because this design, I don't know, it's like it puts the power pickup right next to the case of the E-unit, and that's just going to short and not work. So I wish I'd looked a little closer when I started. Okay, so the E-unit's in. Hopefully these power wires are out of the way. Hopefully these wires don't droop down on top of the gear. And I can come over and just attach that there. So that's all together, wired, and hopefully functional. Okay, so it's all back together. It's working. The headlight is staying lit. And here's the shell. I took the railings off. I washed the shell with diluted dish soap and a toothbrush to get in all the little crevices. I dried it off and then blew off the excess. And I think it looks pretty good. I'd also taken out the little stanchions and tried to clean those up a bit, as well as cleaning off the railings. Now these were difficult to remove because this end was bent. Very hard to unbend so that I could get it out. I've been having trouble with the E-unit. It won't stay in position. And I've taken it apart and cleaned it again, put it back in, and then I realized it's the wire here that's the culprit. So the E-unit was fine, it was clean, it was grounded properly, but it's this wire going to the back of the motor that's causing the continuity issue. I may have to look into replacing that connector and wire, or just take it apart and see if I can resolder it. For the time being, I wiped it off, and I put it in and turned it so that there was tension on it. So that way, if it is loose inside here, it will kind of stay together for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time on DAGryffyn Hobby.